The first update for Animal Crossing New Horizons since its release has added a considerable amount of additional content with new seasonal events and the return of art and bushes. As you may know, having Red sell art from the private beach and other details were accurately predicted ahead of time thanks to data mining by the Twitter user Ninji. However, there were things that were uncovered that were not present in the update. According to another tweet, the code included language referencing vegetables that you can grow and pick: tomato, wheat, sugarcane, potato, carrot, pumpkin. Ninji also showed this as an example of how you can infer things from leftovers in the game, showing script for not being able to pluck a vegetable when your pocket is full. As well, in a list of door opening animations, Garden Tent was mentioned. This could mean that Leaf eventually gets his own permanent shop, like in New Leaf. I personally think that if vegetables were to be added to the game, it would make sense if Leaf sold materials for them, like seeds, in a shop. Although, another possibility would be having the player be able to raise plants inside this garden tent. Of course, this doesn't mean that this feature is for sure coming to the game, but it does seem to be a possibility. When I was trying to think about how raising vegetables would fit into Animal Crossing, I remembered that we had a farming-like feature back in Wild World and City Folk. I'm going to briefly introduce it before going back to farming in New Horizons because I think that it's interesting. It could give us hints as to how farming could work if added in an update, and it shows that it's not such a far-fetched idea. Also, quick note, I'm going to refer to raising vegetables as farming for the rest of the video to distinguish it from gardening in the game, such as keeping flowers. It's hard not to know about turnips in Animal Crossing, considering how big they are online. On the DS and Wii, though, there were actually two types of turnips. White turnips, which are the normal turnips in other games, and red turnips. Only one red turnip seed could be purchased in town per week at a price of 1,000 bells. You'd plant it in the ground, then water it every day. And I mean every day. If you missed even one day, it would die and your work would be for nothing. In City Folk though, you could use the silver watering can to revive it. Depending on how many days you watered it for, when you dug it up, it would fetch a different price, with you needing to water it for at least 4 days in order to turn a profit. I only bought these a few times in Wild World, and as a kid, because I had a hard time remembering to water it every day, I don't think I ever successfully grew one. The max size is reached at 7 days, and if you got there, it would sell for 16,000 bells. I wanted to mention that I ended up waiting a whole week in real life because Joan refused to sell her red turnip seeds to me when I simply changed the time on my clock. I tried looking for help online, but even when I tried things like changing the time on my DS, she would say she didn't have any red turnips that week. I guess being in the business for 60 years teaches you how to spot a dirty time traveler. But I was able to show how the icon changes depending on how many days you watered it for. Totally worth it. Going back to New Horizons, this old system made me wonder if the game would punish us if we missed a day of watering a crop. Well, I don't think that would be as strict as red turnips. In past games, if you didn't water a flower, it had the possibility of wilting the next day. But since that doesn't happen in New Horizons, there's less of an incentive to water plants. I almost never take my can out anymore since I don't go for hybrids that much. So farming could give players another reason to water regularly. Oftentimes in farming games, if you don't water your crops, they simply don't progress to the next step in their cycle. New Horizons could have a combination of these two systems, where if you don't water a vegetable, it doesn't progress, but it also has the possibility of wilting, since Animal Crossing is known for mechanics that try to keep you coming back each day. Also, based on the list of crops, there seems to be a mixture of crops where they could be harvested multiple times and ones where you need to replant after plucking. For the single-time plants, it would be interesting if they go with a mechanic like the red turnips, where the more time and effort you put in, the more bells you could make from it. But having it be a set number of days would be more conventional. I like picking fruit every few days, but since they regenerate on their own, there isn't much for interactivity. Having farming could add to our daily routines and give us something more hands-on than some of the big moneymakers like white turnips, so I do hope that gets added. This would also be a good time for fertilizer to come back from Leaf's shop in New Leaf. In Stardew Valley, depending on the type you buy, it either speeds up the growth process, increases its price, or helps to retain water. Having something like that would add to the strategy side of it. There's a lot of crossover between Animal Crossing fans and farm simulation fans, so I think that farming would be a good fit. Another thing to point out is that from data mining, it does seem that there is a possibility that cooking could be added to the game. This would work out nicely with crafting and the addition of crops, but of course nothing is for sure. Having wheat and sugarcane on the list feel like a hint towards this as well for me, since these are such common ingredients in dishes, but not necessarily a crop that you might think to grow in a game just for the sake of selling. And also, you know, recipes, cooking. No, you're right, that doesn't make any sense. The first set of updates for Animal Crossing New Horizons was announced a little over a week after Bunny Day finished, a month after the game had come out. Wedding season will end June 30th, but since it doesn't end with a big event on the last day, I wouldn't be surprised if the next round of updates was announced in June. Even if farming doesn't end up being a feature in the next set or ever, I like the direction that the updates are going in, and I'm excited to see what they end up doing next. Let me know what your thoughts are on the updates in New Horizons. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to see next? Feel free to follow me on social media like Twitter and Tumblr. Recently, I've been getting more into translating comics, information, and jokes about New Horizons from Japanese into English. As always, thank you for watching the video. See you next time!